Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my sexy vampire party. Oh, yes, indeed. So, one of the big announcements that came out of our Shadowlands update from Blizzard was that each Covenant will have its own unique weekly event that is thematic and is playing into the strengths of the Covenant you've chosen, and hopefully you're going to enjoy them. They're supposed to be kind of fun, not too serious, but something you kind of want to get done, so it just makes the rest of your week easier from what I can see. And the one they've given us to test is probably the most outlandish one, which is the Sexy Vampire Party. I'm not joking, that's what this is. If you are Revendreth, your weekly event will be to throw a soiree, a gala, and invite people from around your network of acquaintances, let's say. That includes prestigious members of the Venthyr, and it also includes prestigious members of the zones you've been in questing. Yeah, so all kinds of people can attend this party, and you have to put thought into this. What's its purpose before we get into the kind of silliness that this is? Your job here is to impress your RSVPs, your special guests. You get to choose for the most part. Now, I'm going to be clear, this is a super early preview of this, and they gave us everything. So this might represent literally months of upgrades in some cases. There are a huge amount of upgrades that go into at least the Venthyr party. Everything from different dinners, different entertainment, different refreshments, all kinds of stuff. I'm talking probably 40 individual upgrades in each section of this. So that might take you a really long time to actually get going so you can get a huge party going. I, of course, have been kind of thrown in with literally everything. I did do the rehearsal. So the way they do the introduction to this is to do a rehearsal, and then you get to throw the actual party. Of course, I went and got absolutely everything, and it doesn't reset until later tonight. So I'll have another go with this and see if I can maybe make it even better. But the purpose of doing this is to give you some rewards. And if you manage to make some of the guests very happy, or at least happy, they will give you some sort of reward. And the main thing you're going to get out of this is a big epic reward, which will then allow you to have certain benefits in certain zones. So in this case, I managed to get Lady Vash, Baroness Vash, ecstatic. So she gave me a buff that gave me increased rep gains and movement speed inside Maldraxxus. So it's going to be things like that, and I have no doubt the reward structure will be adjusted accordingly. So that's what the goal is. The goal is to set yourself up for the week in some sort of buffs and perpetuity, and then you get to do it again next week. And there are sanctum upgrades and things that also increase this, so let's get into the details of it. How do you start it? Well, you have 3 things to do. First of all, you have to invite your guests. Now, an NPC, which will make sense when you do the Revendreth story, why he's in charge of this. An NPC will try and organize your guests for you, but you can get RSVP invitations if you want to invite specific guests, and that's actually kind of important. You can have like 5 special guests ultimately come to your party, and those special guests like different types of parties. And this is where it gets a little bit funny. So you might get, say, Baroness Vash, who really likes exciting parties and she likes death. But you might get some of the more upper class vampires attending, and they like a more formal affair. They don't want beer and things like that. What they would like is a nice cup of tea. They would like it to be a very formal affair with a lot of talking, a lot of aristocracy, all those kind of elements going into it. And you also might invite, say, an abomination that's been stitched together with pieces, and therefore he likes a really messy party. He doesn't like parties that are clean and everybody's trying hard or any of those things. That's not what he's into. Which means you have all these different elements of the party to try and balance in order to make them happy. And you have a time limit to get this done. So once the party starts, you have a time limit in order to get their mood, which will be kind of neutral at the start, into a very happy place, and that will determine the reward you get at the end. They will provide you with a sort of gift for inviting them to the party. So you have to sort out your guests. Then you have to sort out the entertainment. So obviously you can have very sort of classical music playing, which would be very nice for a formal party. That would be that kind of atmosphere. Or maybe you want something exciting, so you want some exciting music. Or maybe you want somebody who's funny in order to make them happy. And then you have to also choose the type of refreshments. The people that are coming might prefer wine, some of them might prefer beer, and some of them might prefer, like I said, cups of tea. It's entirely up to the guests coming how you're going to make them happy, and then try and provide those 3 elements before you actually start the party going. Now, once the party gets going, you have a few minutes before the guests arrive to prepare. So you can run around very quickly, and you can say there'll be cleaners around. So you can tell the cleaners to take a break. If you're looking for a messy party, you'll tell the cleaners to go on break and not to get involved. If there is a certain type of food you want to have, you might have to pick up certain types of ingredients in order to give them to the chef in order to prepare the food for that. If your entertainers have lost their instruments, for example, you might have to run around and find their instruments to make sure they can play the type of music, and that will then put out the entertainment that you asked for. There'll be all sorts of little elements to do. Now, once the guests arrive, they will have an icon above their head determining how happy they are. And you'll also have all these different bars to manage. So one of the bars is messy to clean. Simple as that. Some of the guests might prefer a very clean party, in which case you need to get the workers working harder. And you also need to pick up bits of rubble and things like that are making your party messy. Now, what you can see is when you mouse over things is it will tell you what they do. And you'll literally have plus exciting, plus messy, plus clean, plus formal, plus casual, things like that. So you know exactly what it is that you're doing when you're activating it. And some guys will give you a choice of what you want them to do. There'll then be extra things such as adding a dog to the party. Some people really like dogs. I know I do. So you can add a dog to the party. You can add presents. So if there's somebody there who's not particularly happy with the way you're running the party, you can give them gifts in order to kind of force their happiness level up and get that done. So that's the general crux of it, without going into too many details of all the mini events that are happening here. And I will say, again, I think this is really important, is that we basically jumped right to the very end of this. So I'm definitely making mistakes here. And this isn't even going to be the finalized version of this. So it is what it is. Is this for everyone? Absolutely goddamn not. No. This thing actually turned me off Venthyr. The prospect of doing this every week kind of got on my nerves. For a couple of reasons. One, it lasts a really long time. You can finish it early if you are good at this, which I clearly am not because it's my first time ever doing it, then maybe I can get everybody ecstatic and say, right, the party's over and I can get my rewards and get out. But the prospect of setting it up every week and then even doing it, compared to some of the other ones, so Kyrian's getting things like Boss Rush, Necrolord are getting things like creating their own funky abominations. Well, compared to those things, no, this isn't my jam. This is not my preferred way of doing things. It's goofy, it's silly, it's funny, and I actually think some people will really get a kick out of this scenario. But it's definitely not for everybody. Unquestionably, it's not for everybody. Admittedly, I'm sorry to say that even though it was only my first time doing this, I was really bored. There wasn't enough gimmicks and things, and I think that's the feedback I would give. If Blizzard want this to work, there needs to be way more gimmicks. Some of the things were really cute. Lady Vash really likes it if you can find people who are trying to gate crash the party and kill them and take their severed heads and give them to her. She gets really happy by that. I thought that was fun. But there's like little bouncy mushrooms and stuff around to help you move around the enormity of the party in order to, take care of everything. But I basically ended up just looking for things to get in combat with because there wasn't enough goofy stuff for me to do. I would really like this. I think I would get a kick out of this if this essentially turned into a Legend of Zelda minigame town where there was all kinds of different minigames and stuff to do. And as long as I'm doing choosing the entertainment and the minigames that suit my guests, then I would have more fun with it. Now, what it does appear to be is that the rewards are deterministic. So you can't say something like, I always like to throw a very exciting, very messy party, like a college party, right? What you seem to have to do, depending on the rewards you want to get, is you're choosing to impress certain people to get their buff, their reward, whatever it is you're working on. So sometimes you are going to have to throw that formal, very conservative party, and somewhere in between. You're going to have to do all those different kinds of things. It's interesting. Do I like it? I like the idea of it. I really do. It's silly. It's funny. The actual implementation, though, feels a little lackluster, even though there's clearly been so much effort gone into it, and I'm not dismissing that. There's clearly lots of effort that's gone into this, but still it's not quite enough to make me think, do I want to do this every week? Not really. In terms of my actual influence on the party, I felt like, and maybe it's because it's my first time, so I'm being a little careful with like poo-pooing this, because it might just be a case of I'm a big noob. But it definitely felt like my point was to mouse over things and see whether it said plus to whatever I wanted to plus and click it and then move on. I would much preferred that we could have events where I could even best the special guests or even compete against them. Perhaps I have to let some of them win in certain ways, or I have to make it look like it was trying hard. Doing all kinds of little silly stuff, I think, would have made it a lot more fun for me. And maybe, you know, we have to play a game of polo if it's for the formal party and things like that. Setting up all those kind of events and letting them play out and take part in them just for fun. I think that would be good. Very basic, very simple little stuff like that would have been more involved in terms of my actual gameplay. My gameplay in there was really minimal. There was a bit of combat, and I definitely found myself just running around and getting into combat because I was kind of like looking for stuff to do. And that's kind of where I'm at with it. There's nothing much else to say. It's a really interesting idea. I think it's early. I still think it needs a lot more. If you're going to sell this on people and they're not just going to get absolutely annoyed with having to set this thing up, because there's so much involvement here. There really is, like, a tremendous amount of involvement. It's going to be something that grinds on people, I think, compared to something like a boss rush or just building a silly abomination. But again, I haven't had a chance to play those yet. They're not available to us, so I could be wrong on that. But there you go. There's your sexy vampire party, ladies and gentlemen. Sexy vampire party. Thank you so much for listening. I'll see you again. Bye-bye.